This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the ever so wonderful Tazmin Suleman, where new episodes go out every Thursday. This week, I am joined by a fabulous guest. I have the one and only Billie Geena, and they're with me today to talk about self-paced learning. So it's such a great conversation. We talk about what self-paced learning is, benefits, disadvantages, and she also gives a lot of great actionable tips and advice on how to be the most successful with it. We also talk about Rank Suite, which is one of Billie's newest projects. And it's such a great project, and I can't wait for you to learn more about it in this week's episode. So before we do that, before we crack on, who is Billie? Who is Billie Geena? Billie splits her time between running Rank Suite and her independent SEO consultancy, Uptake Agency. She is passionate about educating digital marketers and making SEO content accessible. And if you do like the podcast and you want to support me and Tazmin, there are a few ways that you can do that. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means that you can give us a one-off donation. There'll be a link in the show notes to do that. And you can also connect with us on social media. So we're on Twitter or X, LinkedIn and Instagram. Just type in SEO Mindset and we'll come up. But again, the link is in the show notes. But we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us, reach out to us, tell us what you think about the podcast, suggest some topics, even if you want to be a guest. Reach out to us because we'd love to hear from you. Right, without any further ado, let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello and a very warm welcome to our fabulous guest, the one and only Billie Geena.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi. I am very excited because we are recording on a Friday night and I get to spend some time with you. So I've got a massive smile on my face and I've been looking forward to recording our session, having a chit chat and hanging out with you.
Me too. Who needs parties? Like, we can record a podcast and just hang.
And I don't just because obviously we've known each other for a while now. We've been friends for a while, and I'm glad that we've made it happen and we found a time to get you on the podcast, which is very exciting.
So I just always assumed that we'd recorded a podcast together. I just assumed it had happened. It's probably because we've had so many calls and stuff. So I'm just happy.
Now I'm thinking, we might have recorded a podcast. Were you on SEO SAS back in the day? Or
I don't think I was. I remember listening to it, but I don't remember being on it. But
well, my bad, because obviously,
how dare you?
How rude of me. But I'm so glad that you're on the SEO Mindset podcast and we get to have a lovely little conversation. So how are you? How has your week been?
It's been a good long old week. It's been just busy recovering from the monthly reports and things like that. But it's been fine.
Oh,
How about you?
the dreaded monthly reports. I mean, we shouldn't say dreaded because they're needed, aren't they? And they're important to reflect and look at what has happened. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm fairly. I'm a few months now into my freelance journey, which is crazy, but I'm having a whale of a time, and I'm so glad that I did it. So yeah.
Good. I feel like freelancing suits you. Like you just seem to be like thriving and cheerful and just it's so nice to see.
It might be like a graceful swan on the surface where I look like I'm smiling, happy-go-lucky, and then underneath I'm like, my feet are going 20 miles an hour. Not 20 miles an hour isn't even that fast. 100 miles an hour. And I'm trying. But no, things are going well, and yeah, it's an exciting journey, and I'm glad that I did it because sometimes you do get that fear. But we're not here to talk about going freelance. Maybe we should. Maybe we get you back on the podcast to do that
I'll turn
again.
up whenever you've got a slot. Like, you know me, I'm
I'm
always
here.
happy to chat. Got nothing else
But
going on.
but what we are talking about today is self-paced learning. So let's start from the top, Billie. What would you class as self-paced learning?
So anything that can be a learning opportunity that you can do at your own time. So whether it's in work, out of work, as quickly or as slowly as the learner would need. It's really important to be able to do that and to cater to different learning styles. Like if you think about it, when we go back to school, university, whatever, I was terrible at school. I am not someone that can sit in a classroom and learn. Some subjects I could not ever figure out in the hour a week or however long a session was. But now as an adult, I've gone back and have enjoyed learning a lot of these things because I've fell down rabbit holes online. I've looked at the things that are interesting to me. And everyone's like that, whether it's in workplace learning, trying to learn something as a hobby. Everyone has their own pace, and it's important to give people that flow of just doing it how they want and when they want.
So it sounds to me that we're taking away the pressure because it's self-paced. You can learn in a way that suits you and your needs. And I think you've already alluded to it briefly, where we all have different learning styles as well. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So being in control of your own learning, this self-paced learning, it puts you in the driver's seat, doesn't it? And you can learn in a way that's the most beneficial to you.
Exactly, and you also lose the judgment of learning alongside peers, because some people might be like, oh, they're not getting this. We spent an hour on this and they're not getting it. They're an idiot. And you're not an idiot. You're never an idiot. You just go at your own pace. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There is no idiots. Learn at the pace that suits you. And that's really the big important thing. Like taking away them constraints, you lose anxiety, you lose some of the self doubts, some the worry that can be there in learning.
100%. And it is because, unfortunately, we do live in an era where, especially on like social media, it can be quite scary to ask a question or to want support, because most of the time, and definitely in the SEO industry, you have a lot of people that are supportive and they'll give you time and answer questions. You do get your odd troll who is not very nice, but we just have to do our best to ignore them. But yeah, like I'm straight away feeling that with self-paced learning, anxiety goes away because there is no judgment, there is no pressure, because it is you at the end of the day. So that's the main benefit that I'm hearing. Are there any other benefits?
Um, Absolutely. With self-paced learning, you can go back to different modules. You can watch the same videos. You can read the same information over and over again until it actually like is fully absorbed. Um, you can also learn things faster. So I know a lot of people that have different neurodiversities like to watch like videos at times two or 1.5 speed. And you can do things like that, which if you were sat in a classroom or a meeting room and watching a video as a group, you can't do that. So it's very much about keeping the attention span. Another great thing as well is you can listen to those things that might really interest you and go down the rabbit hole. Like you could spend an hour reading every single Wikipedia page, all the random blog posts, because it's up to you how interested you are and how dedicated to a certain topic or subject you end up becoming.
Yeah, and I suppose it gives you the full reign of, if you're finding a particular area or a particular topic really interesting, you can go down a rabbit hole and there's no one having that constraint. And another good point that you said is like in real life, you can't get someone to speak at a, oh, can you just speak a bit quicker? I need you to speak quicker so it goes into my head at a quicker speed, or can you just slow down how you're speaking because I can't get it in. So having self-paced learning where you're using online resources, videos, educational stuff online, it just gives you so much more flexibility, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you can also test things out, you can write things, you can pause things. It just gives you the control that your brain needs, because someone speaking at you for an hour, 2 hours, a whole day, you're not going to be able to absorb that. You can stop, you can start. As a 1 hour video could last you a whole week if that's what you needed. And I think it's really important that people talk about self paced learning and don't just go, you need to watch this video to learn how to edit a page on WordPress, and then you feel like you've got to do that there and then. I picked something that's quite a simple task for most for some reason there, but it doesn't need to be complicated, because everyone learns different. What's complicated for me might not be complicated for someone else, and that's what
Yeah,
learning is.
exactly. And we're all at different stages, we're all at different levels, we've all had different experiences. So, what might be really straightforward and simple to one person isn't necessarily the same case for someone else. And also, you've made a really good point, is that there's a lot of people that learn by doing. So, after they've been told a certain thing to do, or they've learned a certain tactic or whatever, I think there is value in then taking a pause and actually implementing that or trying it out yourself, because there's been so many times where I've learned something and in that moment I'm like, that 100% makes sense, I get that, I'll move on to the next thing. And then when I actually go to implement it, I'm a bit like, what? Where do I even start? So I think it gives you time to actually test stuff out and make sure that you actually are understanding and you know what you need to do.
Absolutely. Like, if you think about the last thing that was complicated that you tried to learn, so for me, as an example, um, I'm having to revisit Google Tag Manager and set things up in GA4, and I have, like most people, a lot of problems with GA4. And I'm watching videos and reading guides and doing things as I'm going through it. But I remember years ago, I actually attended a course as part of a company I was working for on using Tag Manager, and there was none of that opportunity to apply it straight away. And I have no idea how I actually knew how to use Tag Manager like these days, because I am like struggling having the information there and doing it at my own pace rather than sitting, learning, and then waiting a week until I needed to use it to apply it. So
Yeah, because
it's fun, it's interesting.
that's not helpful, is it? And there is information overload as well. Like you could be thinking, oh, I'm cramming my brain full of all this wonderful stuff, and I'm gonna store it for that time that I need to implement it and do it. But then there's overwhelm because, yeah, when you go back to it, you might have written some notes down or taken some screen grabs, or you've done, okay, what can I do to help when I'm actually doing it? But doing it when that information is fresh in your brain is so much more easier because you're not having to go back into your archive of, I learned this when, and I need to like get that back to the front of my brain.
Yeah, and like you lose where information is. Like my brain is basically a really old, dated filing cabinet.
Yeah.
It's just scraps of paper everywhere. So by being able to reaffirm knowledge straight away or as you're watching something is always going to be more successful for you, but also you're not going to retain that knowledge forever.
Exactly. Because there's only so much that your brain can retain. And arguably, your brain's only going to retain stuff that it thinks that it needs to. So if you've retained something and you've not used it, your brain might be like, well, I've forgotten it. I don't need to know that now. I've like, that's way gone. So, Billie, you have sold self-paced learning to me 100%. I'm all for it. I think everyone should do it. I'm just very mindful that we've spoken about the benefits and the reasons why you should do self-paced learning. But what I think we just need to touch on quickly before we take a break is any disadvantages, because there might be things that crop up when people are doing self-paced learning that they just need to be aware of.
So there's kind of two ways of looking at it. Like a big disadvantage is and a big blocker you find is from companies. They will want you to do learning in a way that can be monitored, that can be easily tracked, that they know what the success rate is and how it can be profitable for them. And also, on a personal level, is learning at your own pace. Sometimes on reflection, you'll feel like, oh, I've spent an hour reading the same two paragraphs. I feel like I've not learned anything. It's really hard to recognize your own success while you're learning. And those can be easily remedied, but at the same time, you want to be able to learn at your own pace, and it's great if you can have an employer on board. But also, you need to. It can feel like a bit daunting to not to yourself not have results to show. Um, Personally, I think the benefits outweigh the disadvantages, though.
100%. And something that we're going to get into in part two is you're going to be sharing some tips with our audience on how you can be successful with self-paced learning. And yeah, the two disadvantages that you just brought to light can be remedied. That's not like a disadvantage that can't be sorted out. And I agree, the benefits definitely outweigh the disadvantages. I suppose the only other thing that I'm thinking about is accountability might be an issue. So with self-paced learning, you still need to think about how to stay accountable, and you can do that as well. And again, we'll probably explore that in part two. But just as like with anything in life, there's going to be your advantages and disadvantages. But with the disadvantages, there are ways, or there's things that you can implement so they don't become a blocker or they don't become an obstacle.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm nodding my head. I realise this is a podcast. But yeah, 100%. Like, there's loads we can do to be accountable and to take ownership and to review and set goals. And you summarised it way better than me.
Well, and now I've just put you on the spot. Wonderful. Well, Billie, this first half has been wonderful, and you've sold it to me. You've sold self-paced learning to me, and I'm sure our audience are rooting for it as well. Let's take a short break, give time for our listeners to digest the information, take a short breather, and we'll be back with part 2. And Billie Geena, I love saying Billie Geena, it just rolls off the tongue. Billie Geena will be sharing easy to implement tips on how to be successful. And we are also going to talk about a very exciting project that Billie has recently launched, and she's going to get shy. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Rank Suite. So I won't say anything more for now. And join us back for part 2. It's your pal Sarah here. Would you like to support the podcast? Do you want to support what me and Tazmin are doing? Well, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. For example, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means that you can give us a one-off donation. We'd be very much appreciative of that. And if you leave us a message, we can also give you a shout out. We're also on social media, so let's get connected. Reach out, follow us. Ask us questions, send us a message, suggest topics, whatever you want to talk to us about, we are all ears. We are on all the major social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter or X. I'm not sure how you're meant to say that now. But anyway, there is a link in the show notes where you can follow us. But just search the SEO Mindset and we'll come up. Welcome back for part 2. Did you enjoy your short break there, Billie?
I did. It was very relaxing, very calm. There were no me giving anyone anxiety. It was great.
Zen vibes.
Zen vibes.
So, we have been bigging up self-paced learning. What we need to do now, and what we always like to do in this podcast, is make sure that listeners have stuff that they can take away, that they can implement, whether that's a strategy, tactic, way of learning, whatever. It's always good to give our listeners something that they can actually take away and implement after listening to this episode. So for those who are like, yes, give me some self-paced learning, what tips can you share to be successful?
So the best thing that you can do, and you don't have to do it too regularly, but set out goals for your learning process. So what do you want to learn? Why do you want to learn it? What activities do you need? And how long do you think it'll take you to learn this? Set these for yourself before you start your self-paced learning journey, and then reflect on that. So if you've set a long-term goal, say you want to become a better account manager over the year, and you're going to be learning all different tactics about building rapport and speaking to people and all that jazz. Set yourself in like times throughout the year, like incremental periods of so you can review that, and that way you're less likely to self-doubt and feel like you're wasting time or not recognizing any success, and you're also going to be able to keep yourself a bit more accountable there. And the same process, make a note of what success will look like to you, how you're going to measure that success, and keep notes on what you've liked while you're learning. Have you found that you really like reading articles? Have you found that you like videos? Have you found that you like just looking at a problem and figuring it out? Like, that'll help you understand for whatever your next goal is, like what's going to help you. I could monologue forever here, but take breaks as well. Don't burn yourself out. Don't go into information overload. And we've already touched on this at the beginning, but the best thing to do to solidify and reaffirm learning is to do the thing. So if you read about a principle, principle, I can't say that today.
Principle. You did it. You're
Principle.
fine.
Did I? It didn't sound right. Um, but yeah, you've learned about it, you've read about it, apply it as soon as you can, whether it's with a colleague, on a call, on with a client, whatever. I did a course on coaching recently, and my mum hated me because I kept trying to coach her. I was asking her all these open-ended questions, and yeah, any opportunity you get to practice is going to be immensely beneficial.
Those are some cracking tips. And I suppose when you are, so just to add on to your last point about learn by doing, so implement the stuff that you've learned, make sure that you're doing it in a place that you feel safe and supported, especially if you're doing something for the first time and you're a bit nervous. You need a cheerleader, don't you, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's so much harder to learn around people that don't support you or don't want the best for you, even if that's not the case. If they just aren't giving you the right energy you need to feel reassured and comfortable testing something, that it's not the place. You need somewhere where, even if you make a mistake, that your confidence isn't going to be broken. Because I don't know how many of the listeners are this person, but I'm this person. That sometimes if I'm not immediately good at something, I don't want to do it anymore. You need the people that are going to be able to cheer you on and be like, okay, you might have not been great this first time, but don't give up just yet, because otherwise you end up with thousands of pounds spent on random hobbies. You've got so many balls of yarn and nothing to do with it.
How many, Billy? How many balls of yarn are we talking?
I've got a big freezer bag, like you know the big like Morrison's ones, big freezer bag
Full of yarn.
full of yarn.
But joking aside, you've hit the nail on the head here, and you've got to be kind to yourself. You are learning. No one who is doing something for the first time or they haven't had much experience doing it, they're not going to be great first off. So you need to give yourself that 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 chance to learn, be kind to yourself, and just always remember anything that you wouldn't say to your friend or a family member or a loved one. So if they're learning something and they're going through something new for the first time, anything that you wouldn't say to them while they're going through this process, try and do the same for yourself, because you are learning. There is going to be a learning curve. So if I, for example, if I listen back to my very first podcast episode that I ever did, I'm probably going to cringe now because as time has gone on, I've had time to practice. I've developed my skills. I've perfected certain things. When it comes to the SEO industry, there's so much stuff that you have to learn on the whim, on the whim, on a whim, on a whim,
On a whim.
on a
On the
whim.
whim.
On the whim. I mean, I've derailed the conversation, but anyway. So in the SEO industry, there's a lot of stuff that's going to throw you curveballs, or you're going to have to learn something new because until you've had experience. And also, Google is updating its algorithm, throwing new stuff at you all the time. So you've got to have this flexibility and be like, okay, I don't know this thing right now. This is the thing that I want to learn. This is the thing that I want to get better at. So, with your example, Billy, of becoming a better account manager, for example, that's going to take time. You need to learn what works and what doesn't. And actually, you want to make mistakes because that's how you learn. You make these mistakes and you know, okay, I'm not going to do that again. It's like touching something hot. Hopefully you've touched it the first time, you've burnt yourself, and you're not going to do it again. It's the same with learning. It's the same with anything that you're doing for the first time. I feel like I've got very passionate all of a sudden, so we're going to pass it back over to you there, Billy.
No, I liked that, the passion, the it wasn't rage, but it was like heated speech. It was
I was
brilliant.
on my soapbox because I just want people, like, we should be learning, we should be developing ourselves, but at the same time, be kind to yourself while you're doing this. It's a whole different new process.
Exactly. And when you do go back and you revisit things, like if we take your podcast example, and if you went back to your first podcast, yes, you might potentially cringe a little bit, but then also you need to reflect and be like, why am I cringing? It's because I've got so much better at this. It's because I've improved vastly. It shouldn't be, oh, I'm cringed because this is so embarrassing because I didn't know what I was doing then. It's like, no, this is actually great because now I can see how far I've come and how brilliant I am. And
Yeah.
it's switching that mindset.
I mean, yes, definitely. And you should never cringe at something that you've done in the past because, yeah, you should definitely shift your mindset because it's actually, look how far I've come and I've developed my skills. And in actual fact, if I listen back to my first podcast episode, I should still be proud because I still had the courage to try something, to do something that was different, to put me outside of my comfort zone. And if I hadn't started that first ever podcast, if I hadn't recorded that first ever episode, I wouldn't be where I am now.
No, and it's because you took that chance, you learned something new, you pushed yourself, you've created all these new opportunities for yourself. So it's brilliant. Just by wanting to learn something new, take on a new hobby, it could be such a big impact in anyone that's listening's career. Like I only learned about SEO like 10 plus years ago because I had a blog. And if I didn't bother to try and learn about SEO, I wouldn't have this career. I'd probably still be working in a call center. And like like I know we're going a bit off topic here, but it's like the butterfly effect. Like you never know where learning is going to take you, and that's what's so brilliant and exciting about it.
Yeah, and you should say yes to opportunities. And if you're learning something and you're taking on a new project or you're doing something for the first time, you don't have to stick at it if you don't like it. And also, I think what's important is I think definitely in the SEO industry, you end up comparing yourself to others and you compare yourself to someone else who you aspire to. But remember, they've had to learn, they've gone through the same process that you've gone through. And the only way that you're going to learn, develop, and better yourself is by testing yourself and putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And don't be hard on yourself when you do make mistakes because everyone in this industry does. Um, I've accidentally sworn in front of clients. I've said all sorts of random stuff. I've done bad reports. I've done great reports. Everything. Your attitude towards yourself and towards your learning and being able to recognize improvement. That's probably one of the biggest and best things you can do and have for yourself. Um, Keep note of things and develop, and you're going to be brilliant.
And any mistake that you do make, there is going to be someone in the industry that has done it, like you've just said. Like we've all deleted something that we shouldn't have. We've all push live on something that we shouldn't have. Like, do you know what I mean? We've all done these things. So don't ever think, oh my gosh, I'm so silly, no one else would have done that. Of course, like there is loads. And do you know what? I'm so tempted to do a whole episode where people come clean of their biggest mistakes and what they learned from it, because that would be quite fun, wouldn't
Do it the next Brighton. Take a microphone, box pop people, and be like, "What's your biggest mistake?" And then
what was
find
your biggest
me.
mistake?
Find
What was your
me.
biggest?
Me, do you want me
Yeah.
to do it now? Oh God, I've got all
No,
sorts.
I'm not doing it now.
I'm gonna say, I need a whole hour of the segment.
But what would be really fun is if we were like, what is your biggest mistake, but what did you learn from it, and make it a learning curve. So yeah,
Do it.
watch this space. Right, Billie, this has been a cracking conversation and we are severely running out of time. But I want to make sure that we spend time talking about one of your new projects that you should be very proud of. And I want to say a huge congratulations on you putting together, developing, and launching Rank Suite. So, round of applause to you, Billie, for doing that. Hopefully, people can hear my claps.
Yeah, I was doing a really quiet one.
But yeah, congratulations on that massive project, because it must have been a lot of work to pull off. But tell our listeners about Rank Suite. What is it? Why should people get involved in it? And how can people get involved?
So Rank Suite, it's pretty cool. I really like it, but I have to because I made it. It's a digital marketing learning platform. So we have courses created by industry experts. You can do it all at your own pace. We offer both monthly and annual subscriptions. So both businesses and freelancers can subscribe, and you can learn at your own pace, whether it takes you a month to do as many courses as you want or a whole year. It doesn't matter. Do it whatever suits you. So it's really cool. I'm working on version 1.3 at the moment, so there's some really cool updates coming. But at the moment, we offer video streaming courses. Everything's got subtitles. We're trying to be as accessible as we can. We're working on transcripts and things like that at the moment. We offer downloadable frameworks, worksheets, personal development plans, and we're building out some really cool challenges to help you reaffirm that knowledge. Everything's really focused to our industry. So at the moment, we're mainly focusing on SEO, content marketing, and data and analytics. But later in the year, /2025, I forgot what year it is, we're going to be moving into PPC and digital PR. A big thing is that we're not a single source of knowledge. This isn't a random SEO course that you find online. It's really important to me that we collaborate with industry experts. Everything's peer reviewed. We're not spouting any nonsense or snake oil sales. And it's hopefully going to become a great learning community.
Sounds wonderful. I mean, and it is wonderful what you've created. So you should be proud and well done. And yes, you've got some stellar specialists and course providers in there. People might recognize someone talking right now.
I didn't know how to respond there because it's a podcast. I was going to point at you. My brain crashed. But yeah, we've got a little known person called Sarah McDowell creating a course on auditing content. Not to brag, but she's a little bit of a celebrity out there in the industry.
Now you're making me go all weird and
Yeah, it's awkward and horrible when people are nice to you, isn't it? You don't know how to act.
But yeah, and so where can people go to join up? And
ranksuite.io. You could also look in the footnotes of this video or go on the SEO Mindset podcast because there's a lovely little link there that you can follow. But yeah, not to be too salesy or forceful, but you absolutely, definitely must do that right now.
You should right now. Billie means business. No. What we'll make sure is all the links to Rank Suite are in the show notes. And what we'll also make sure as well, Billie, is all your social media handles and all your personal links are in the show notes as well. So then people can carry on the conversation with you. There are a few more questions that I want to squeeze in, but one last congrats on Rank Suite, such a brilliant resource for the community. Go and check it out because, yeah, it's just fabulous and a big congratulations. So I know that we've spoken about a lot in this episode, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you for one main takeaway.
advocate to learn at your own pace. Don't just do a course that's in person because that's what everyone else is doing. Look at options that suit you and take control of your learning so you can be more successful.
I would like you to nominate one person to follow in the industry.
I'm going to say Miriam Jessia because she posts a lot of silly things, but also some very, very helpful things, and she's just brilliant.
I do agree. I already follow Miriam, and she is a breath of fresh air. She is wonderful.
She's a tornado in a bottle. She's great. She's fantastic. You never know what's going to happen.
She's fun, knowledgeable, and you'll always learn something from her. So that is a great shout. Thank you, Billie. And best career advice that you've ever received?
Best career advice I've ever received is to just go for things, even if I don't think I'm qualified. Like, you never know what's going to happen and turn out, and if you don't take the chance, then there's nothing's really going to happen, is it?
Well, thank you so much, Billie. It has been fabulous having you on the podcast. I've had a whale of a time spending my evening with you, chatting and getting all your wonderful knowledge, experience. And yeah, it's just been absolutely fabulous.
Honestly, I just think this is how we should spend every Friday night.
We should. We definitely should. And yeah, I just want to remind people before we go, if you do enjoy the podcast and if you do enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing, you can support us. So we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, and you can give us a one-off donation, a link in the show notes for that. You can also follow us on social media. So we're on Twitter. I know you meant to say X, but I can't. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. So literally just type in SEO Mindset Podcast and we'll come up. But again, link in the show notes. Reach out to us, chat to us, suggest a topic, say hi. We love hearing from you. So that is the best way to do it. And yeah, I believe that is it. That is time. And the only thing left to say is look after yourselves. And until next time.